It also proposes that the Human Rights Council hold a meeting on the promotion and protection of human rights, the human rights persons in vulnerable and marginalized situations during and after the pandemic. The Serbian president says an expressway built by a Chinese company in western Serbia will bring benefits to local community construction site near the town of Klinika. The road is 18 kilometers long and is worth nearly $180 million. Construction started in June of last year. It's expected to wrap up in December of next year. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's warned that the UK must be very wary of the potential for a third wave of coronavirus infections. He was speaking on the first anniversary of the UK's first coronavirus lockdown.
We must be very aware of the potential for a third wave. Sadly, on the European continent, we are seeing distinct signs of a third wave, and they're taking steps to abate that, to deal with that. And we in the UK have very tough measures at our borders already, including mandatory tests for anybody who comes here.
Johnson also says he hopes to get more information on foreign holidays by April the 5th. And this follows news that the $7,000 fine is coming into force this week for those traveling abroad for leisure. He also commented on growing tensions between Europe and the UK surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, saying the UK does not support vaccine nationalism. Caretaker Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has extended the lockdown in the country because of a surge in the number of infections. Rutte says that coronavirus infections are rising too fast to allow a relaxation of the current curbs.
That's the worrying reality of today, and that is why at the moment we cannot drop any of the measures. This means that we will extend the current measures by 3 weeks until Tuesday, April the 20th.
On Tuesday, the Dutch Public Health Institute reported a 16% rise in positive tests over the last week and increases in COVID-19 deaths and hospitalizations. Infections among the young rose sharply, with an increase of 29% among children aged 13 to 17 and 23% among 12 years old and under. The rise came weeks after the government allowed schools to partially reopen. So far, more than 16,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the Netherlands. Police in the U.S. state of Colorado have identified a 21-year-old man as the suspect who shot and killed 10 people in a supermarket. Authorities say Ahmad Al-Aliwi Alisa allegedly attacked the crowded supermarket in Boulder, northwest of Denver, on Monday with a rifle. A police officer is among the dead, while the suspect was also wounded during a shootout with police. Alisa is being treated at a local hospital and is expected to be charged with murder. The motive for the attack is yet to be established, but the suspect's family told investigators they believe Alisa was suffering from some type of mental illness, including delusions. President Joe Biden announced that flags nationwide would be lowered in memory of the victims. This is Shane Bigham, live from the Chinese capital. Coming up in business, a call to standardize rules for the global digital economy.
You're listening to the Beijing Hour, 60 minutes of comprehensive news. Your window on China
$1,000 a meter. What the fuck are you making this road out of? Where are you like? Does this include clearing of
37 minutes
landmines
past the hour now. Turning to business, starting with a look at the markets, and U.S. stocks finished lower as investors looked to remarks by Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. The Dow Jones slid by 0.9%. The S&P 500 fell 0.8%. The Nasdaq lost 1.1%.
Your favorite
Powell and Yellen
18
started
road.
two-day testimony in
And ask the
Congress on
government
the
what it costs
economic
them to
policy
build that.
outlook. The Federal Reserve Chairman says the U.S. economic recovery
wrong with this
has
story.
progressed more quickly than expected. He also cautioned that the comeback is far from complete. Yellen says the stimulus plan passed by Congress is what the economy needs. European stocks closed mixed on Tuesday as concerns over a third wave of COVID infections in the region rattled investor sentiment. German stocks closed flat yesterday. Both the FTSE 100 in London and the CAC 40 in Paris dropped by 0.4%. Stocks in China closed lower on Tuesday with the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index down by around 0.9%. The Shenzhen Component Index dropped around 1.1%. Market analyst
both
Wang Li
SCI. What the
Milan
fuck?
stocks slipped today along with its Asian peers, like you mentioned. The Shanghai Composite tumbled 0.9% to close at 3,411 points. Credit Suisse analysts downgraded A shares to underweight from market weight, citing slower earnings growth and expensive valuations. Today, stocks are falling across the board, with raw materials among the biggest decliners. That's after aluminium future prices dropped by its daily limit on speculation that the country may release some of its state reserves. Power stocks also retreated from recent highs, with investor appetite for carbon neutral related stocks such as Xinjiang Tianpu Energy fading away. On the flip side, we did see stocks related to cryptocurrencies jumping after the Shanghai Securities Journal reported that 6 state-owned banks, including ICBC, Agricultural Bank of China, Postal Bank of China, have begun promoting the use of a digital yuan wallet in Shanghai. Wuhan Tianyu Information Industry surged 17% on the Chinex.
And that was market analyst Wang Li. Hong Kong stocks closed lower, with the Hang Seng index falling around 1.3%. Elsewhere, stocks in Singapore closed in marginally positive territory. The Straits Times index gained around 0.1%. In Japan, the Nikkei was down around 0.6%. A group of 25 major corporations is calling for standardized rules to govern the global digital economy. It says the group of 7 leading industrialized countries should establish a body to coordinate digital policy on a global level. It warns that fragmented policies could stifle innovation. The group includes U.S. credit card giant MasterCard, German industrial heavyweight Siemens, and Japan's SoftBank. It says that a lack of coordination has meant some governments are moving quickly to regulate, often without sufficient expertise, adequate public input, or coordination with other governments. The group likened the proposed body to the Financial Stability Board, created in response to the 2008 global financial crisis.
You get dumb check boxes and things.
Cross-border e-commerce has become an increasingly important pillar of China's foreign trade, with over 10,000 traditional foreign trade firms going online for the first time last year. The country saw its total imports and exports of goods expand by around 2% year-on-year in 2020. It was the world's only major economy to register positive growth. The government work report this year says China will accelerate development of cross-border e-commerce and support enterprises in diversifying their markets overseas. It's establishing 46 new comprehensive cross-border e-commerce pilot zones and simplifying customs clearance procedures. More than 1,800 overseas warehouses are already serving as infrastructure for trade, and the country is encouraging companies to build more. On this, Zhou Feng earlier spoke with John Ross, a senior fellow at the Chengyang Institute for Financial Studies at Beijing's Renmin University.
So, first of all, what has contributed to the burgeoning growth of China's cross-border e-commerce sector?
Well, the underlying thing is the very successful recovery of China from the pandemic. I mean, China's the only major economy in the world in 2020 which grew, and this is increases in trade, that successful increases in trade both in exports and imports, therefore were sustained by this. Then the technical thing, of course, e-commerce is now becoming more of a higher percentage of trade. So if you put these two things together, if China is the most successfully recovering major economy in the world, and e-commerce is becoming an increasing proportion of trade, well, then you get the very satisfactory results which have been registered.
With global demand for made-in-China products skyrocketing since the pandemic, what can China do to sustain this momentum?
Well, the most important thing is to continue to have the successful growth of China's economy. The recent National People's Congress put a target for China's economy to grow by at least 6% this year. Some experts think that the economic growth is even faster. So this is the most important condition. But the second is also China is the leading country in the world from the point of view of e-commerce. And Alibaba is the great pioneer of cross-border e-commerce. And then the internal development in China, the market of e-commerce is much more advanced than in Western countries. So therefore, China needs to do two things. One is the technological edge, which it's already got, and it needs to have a successful economic recovery, which is so far what's happening.
That was John Ross commenting on China's cross-border e-commerce development. Baidu has started trading on the Hong Kong stock market. The Chinese tech giant is the latest U.S.-listed mainland business to complete a secondary listing in the city. Michelle Hennessy has more.
This is what Baidu looked like in the year 2000. Its search bar may not look too different through the years, but the company behind it has grown into one of the largest AI and internet firms in the world. 16 years after going public in the US stock market, a secondary listing in Hong Kong has brought in over $3 billion in fresh capital. In the COVID-19 era, the celebrations were virtual, but they signified yet another Chinese company floated on Wall Street, making moves to return closer to home.
Hong Kong supports the development of innovation, and Baidu has an innovation culture. This is an era where technology and innovation are looking hand in hand.
Hong Kong has become the top choice for blue-chip Chinese tech firms. Tencent has been a mainstay of the offshore market. Listings by the likes of Meituan, Alibaba and Xiaomi have bolstered the fragrant harvest status as IPO capital of the world. Analysts say Baidu's diverse portfolio will maintain an attractive growth outlook.
I think in the past 10 years, Baidu has invested up to 20% of its revenue into R&D. So I think in the past 10 years, people invested in the market has been questioning
building a space station
about Baidu's investment, and I think now it's paying off. Clearly, I think AI, going forward, AI and other forms of technology that Baidu has been investing in itself is going to lead the way.
Those investments are
make
still
my phone levitate or not?
US-listed shares have risen more than 20% this year. And now with the funds raised from its Hong Kong listing, the company said it will invest in technology and enhance its AI offers. Its stock was up 1% in early trade. The subdued debut that analysts say is a reflection of the general market trend.
I think going into February this year, we're seeing a correction in the U.S. tech stocks, and also, the tech space in China, for example, the Chinese index was, under quite a bit of pressure. So I think Baidu is debuting in a sort of a more unfriendly environment, such as this. So today's performance, I wouldn't say it's too bad.
Chinese tech firms, though, are facing growing pressure from regulators at home. Baidu was one of 12 companies fined over deals that violated anti-monopoly rules. Beijing is making good on its promise to clamp down on the sprawling platform economy. What among these companies has seen valuations soar over the past few years? Risk and responsible growth are mantras that could define their share prices in the future.
That was Michelle Hennessy reporting on Baidu's second listing in Hong Kong. JD's announced plans to invest a further $800 million in data. The Chinese e-commerce giant will now hold a 51% stake in the thriving on-demand logistics platform. It comes as JD ramps up its transportation and logistics businesses. JD's pledged not to sell, transfer, or dispose of any shares bought in the deal within 6 months of its conclusion. Data operates JD.DJ, one of China's largest domestic on-demand retail platforms. The subsidiary works with a bevy of retailers, including Walmart and Yonghui. The platform promises delivery as fast as within 1 hour. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, China's football national team is preparing for World Cup qualifiers.
This is China Plus. We bring you the latest news and events making headlines in China all around the world.
North American cartoons from like the 50s onwards. Acme Company. When he writes a letter to order something, it comes.
You're receiving an order from the United Nations.
We took it serious.
The best and ultimate way to put Hong
We take
Kong
that cartoon serious, don't we?
We give
Is
you
any
the
of
why
that?
and the how behind the stories,
For sure
so
any
you
of
can
this
better
is true.
understand the reactions of those involved.
More than 63 billion people have been affected by
all of TikTok's middle to senior level executives.
All of TikTok's middle to
Who
senior
knows on the dinner
level
plate
executives
that
what?
every single frame. Subscribe to The Top Story to learn more about the world in which we're living and the podcast.
Let's just press this button. $10,000 $180 million for 18 kilometers. It's $10 million for 1,000 meters. Do they grow cocaine in Serbia and not tell us or something? Like, what is the deal?
West End chick that was raised in the lane. Yeah, you won't believe, pay up, just raise the fee. They calling, but they can't get a hold of me. The beats already BT, raise a bar.
I wonder if the Russians have like greenhouses with coca plants, just in case.
But they wanna come around. I'ma ride this way, put the water running out. I'ma spark this place till the fight burn out. Just don't know before, but I'm done now. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, I don't want the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party.